Hey, and welcome to this episode of Co-Creating with AI. And with me, as always, is Rasmus. I'm Martin Källström and Rasmus Oliver. How are you today?
Pretty good. Sun is shining. Yeah. I mean, we're going to talk about it, but I'm excited for this episode. There's a bunch of questions I want to ask you.
All
Like,
right.
I don't know. I like that format from last time. It's a little bit like I can just like spend the episode being curious about something that goes beyond my technical understanding, and then
Yeah.
I can like learn. And I don't know how how you felt about it, but it's really
Yeah,
fun
I
for
think
me.
it's awesome. Yeah, it's a fun way of having a conversation. So, what are you curious about today?
So the thing that sort of caught my eye during the past week is Open Interpreter. I'm
Yes.
not sure who's seen it. I haven't like really played around with it properly myself yet, but I've seen demos. And in short, if you visualize it, you open the terminal on your Mac, right? You know, the old command
Mm-hmm.
line kind of where you can, basically write commands directly to your Mac. And you just write this little thing like slash open interpreter or something, and then you give it a natural language command, like
Mm.
convert all the Word documents in my documents folder to PDFs. And then it figures out a bunch of ways to do that. Or you asked it to, write a small app for you. Like they took the example, classic example of a Pomodoro timer. And then
Mm.
it writes all the code, executes it, and the app pops up. And I don't know if there are like steps in between there they cut, but it still seems very feasible. So what sort of
Yeah.
caught my eye with that is not like the tool itself, because if we're going to talk about that, we need, of course, use it a lot,
Mm.
but more like just the realization that we are at the point now where you can give the AI access to a very very basic level of your computer,
Yeah.
and it can do things for you there, which is like one. I mean, it's maybe obvious. Like we've talked about it before that Apple will probably come out with a Siri that can use all your apps and just talk with it, and it uses your phone, right? But this is like one level deeper in my mind, which is
Mm.
like it really can go down and like build things for you, put things together for you, and like really utilize the full. I mean, I don't know. This is where I'm curious, but like a
Mm.
much more higher percentage of the potential of what your computer can actually do for
Yeah.
you. So that I'm really curious there, and so I guess I don't know if that sounds fun to talk about. Then I'd
Yeah.
I mean I'd
I'd
dive
love to
there.
talk about that. And I have the same excitement about Open Interpreter and just the like uh, another like um adding another perspective on top of that I'd love to talk about as well. So let's do that. And I can give some insight into what I'm thinking about with Open Interpreter, that it of course comes from um, Code Interpreter, which was launched by OpenAI, and they later renamed it to Advanced Data Analytics, but it was Code Interpreter from the start, and now there's this open source version called Open Interpreter. And what is so cool about this, in my mind, is that Open Interpreter, since it can utilize, as you say, the full force of your full power of your computer, is so much more powerful than what Code Interpreter is inside ChatGPT. And let's call it Advanced Data Analytics, because that's what it's named now. That's a very very strong offering, but all of that power is available in your Mac as well, um, and can be accessed with Open Interpreter. Like, you can run all the advanced data analytics in Open Interpreter, but you can also do so much more, which OpenAI has to lock down in order to not just offer free compute for unlimited spam capacity and so on, and the possibility to install malware or whatever you want. They have to lock it down a lot, but that lockdown is not um, needed on your own computer. So actually, Open Interpreter just took the cue, made basically a clone, but on your own computer, the clone is so much more powerful. And this, again, removes sort of the moat for OpenAI. Like, in open source, again, wins the day in a very romantic way. where it's actually more powerful to run your own stuff on your own computer than even though OpenAI AI has one of the biggest server farms on the planet. They can't offer the full power of that just because they have to lock it down. And that's, to me, that's exciting as well with Open Interpreter, just that the openness wins.
Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, I think I want to double click there like a bit later, but like my first
Mm-hmm.
just question, like as a, I guess I've been involved in technology a lot, right, as a founder, but
Mm-hmm.
like what can and can't you do on in the terminal? If we just say like, I mean, and it's probably limiting it, but let's limit it just to sort of
Yeah.
make, some sense of where it is now. So let's just look at this as like we have a person, we have an assistant that can sit on your, computer typing in your terminal,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you talk to that person. So it's basically someone using the computer for you,
Mm-hmm.
right? What can and can't that person do? And I'm just talking now as a, let's say, a hyper competent developer
Mm-hmm.
sitting in the terminal. Like what
Yeah.
can and can't you do?
And so if you start with what you can, of course, as you said, write code and execute it on your computer. And you can create apps, you can write code and compile them into apps that then are then useful on your system, like personalized to your needs on a level that is not haven't been seen in the history of computers before. You can, if you want your own flavor of Pomodoro timer that works like specifically like you want it, you can tune it to your needs from ground up. Like it's going to be built for you from the first line of code, and that's strong in itself. But since Open Interpreter has access to the terminal, it's not only a programmer; it's also a DevOps engineer. So you can set up servers. You can manage, like, all the cloud servers have their own terminal apps. You can direct, orchestrate Amazon Web Service through your terminal in your Mac. So you can basically direct the entire uh, cloud from your terminal with a power which is now available to Open Interpreter. And so that's, it's not only like your own computer which is now accessible from the LLM, but also the entire cloud. And as long as you give it access to authentication, and but that's also like where it could be beneficial to think twice before you, like, give away full access. You don't, like, you have to be in control as well about what happens.
So let's
But
let's think there like a
yeah.
little bit, just like to just double click there. So in the terminal, I'm just like making it really like stupid simple here, but
Mm,
like you can access all the data on your computer, right? That's one
yes.
thing,
Yes.
right? You
Yeah.
can also, for example, to make it, you can, I mean, now that's not the way it would do it, right? But you can
Mm,
literally go online, like in your terminal, you could go
mm,
online and basically access Amazon Web Services or literally any other website, right? You
yeah.
could go to a
Yeah.
website, receive that information just as you would in a
Mm,
browser, even though there, the HTML is of course presented in like
yeah.
visually, but you could get all that information and you could actually take actions.
Yes.
So right from your terminal, if you were like a super hyper nerd,
Mm,
who wanted to only experience the internet through the terminal, you
yeah.
could do most things through the
You
terminal.
could,
Is that
yeah,
correct?
yes, that's correct. And you can run, there are headless browsers that you can run on the command line, and you will maybe not see the screen even, but it's there. Like the screen is rendered in memory, and you can direct it to click on links. You can surf into Twitter and post things on Twitter if you're authenticated. And
Mm,
that's, you can write the Open Interpreter can write Python code to do that. It can also do it right from like, just line by line inside the
mm,
terminal. Um, set up a headless browser, browse the web, and fetch it. There's a classic terminal command called curl, which just fetches a URL, contents from any URL, and that gives also the power of accessing anything online, images, videos, homepages, and APIs.
And on the topic of like authentication, like I don't use it that way, but you have the keychain on your Mac, right? For
Mm-hmm.
example, like you
Mm.
could, in theory, like this terminal, like just
Yeah.
imagine like what you're basically saying is whatever you can do in the terminal, in theory, Open Interpreter can do for you in the terminal, right?
Mm.
And you could log into Twitter in your terminal, like you could have, a file stored with your Twitter login information, right? I mean, that's probably a stupid way to do it, right? But like you could literally give it access to
Yes.
act as you because that's what it's
Mm.
doing. You have
Yeah.
like someone acting as you for you. Is
Mm.
that fair?
Yeah. And it will be a very, like, at the moment, a very clumsy interface to do advanced things, but but that just takes time, like to develop a UX on top of that capability that Open Interpreter is the first software to represent. I think it's a hint of what is to come over the
Mm,
next 2-3 years, that we are going to have probably autonomous agents or assistants on sitting on our laptops doing work for us, as if they are us, like with our credentials, acting as us, and and like hopefully doing really good things that are mechanical in nature, so that don't have to do it by hand, and I can do my human stuff, and the machine can do the machine stuff.
mm. And this is interesting. So that's like it's almost speaks to, I mean, we touched on open source,
Mm.
but also like the edge, right? Which we've touched upon both of those in previous episode. Like in this case, it makes sense that if you are going to have someone acting on your behalf, the closer it is to you, like to your computer,
Mm.
it makes sense. Then it can act as you, right? Because that's where you
Mm.
have your credentials. That's why how you interact with the world, right? So it can, and,
Mm.
and that really brings it to that. It's not like we have to build AI to use all the tools out there because those tools are already usable because our computers can use them. So anything that's
Mm.
built for us should be able to be used by AI, right? I mean,
Yeah.
this makes it. I mean, we've talked about that before, and like one of the things I think Anthropic said they were going to do from the start was like train an AI to use all the tools out there,
Mm.
and that's probably still useful, and we could dive into that. But this really like brings it to like on a fundamental level. It's really like everything that's been built will be able to be used by AI. Is that like? Do you see it that way as well?
Yeah, definitely. That's how I see it. And um, so we are that there's going to be over the next few years. We are not right now in the stage of, or let's build AI into our existing software. And the next step is what Open Interpreter represents. Like, let's have the AI run our software,
Mm,
and also let's have the AI code our software, and build it. And then the next step after that, which I don't know how long it will be, it's like, why do we even need software?
mm,
Let's just ask the AI to do things fundamentally. Like what, and that's also what Code Interpreter and Open Interpreter represents. That why do I need ready-made software if the AI is just good enough as at writing code on the fly and executing it? And of course, there's needs to be quality controls, and with like software that you develop and refine over time, you can have a continuous improvement that is not thrown away. But but pretty soon, like if you just have an API for something, maybe you don't need a UI. Even you can just have an AI call the API
mm.
over and over with custom code in every call that is generated on the fly. And that's a direction that like, or a horizon that Open Interpreter opens up the door to.
And that's interesting because in my mind, that sort of speaks to open source on a quite a fundamental level. Because like one of the things that impressed me when you explained it to me with then code like FD code interpreter, like advanced data analysis.
Mm.
I like the code interpreter better actually.
Yeah,
With
it's a catchier name. It's much. I don't know. Yeah, maybe we should call it code interpreter just
yeah,
for
let's
the
do
hell of
it.
it. Yeah.
Whatever. But anyhow, what made like when you explained it to me, what sort of impressed me was that it's not only that it can write code, it has a lot of tools already. It has all these
Mm.
libraries of, really, really powerful, I don't know, function is probably too low level a way to explain it, but like things it can do uh, and utilize, so it has a
Mm.
bunch of tools. And then the interesting thing for me is like if it can have those tools and actually adjust the code for your
Mm.
need,
Mm.
that's, that's and it can act as you close to you, right? So it can use all your tools, and those tools are either then closed, so it has like a limited set of you know things it can do either through the website or through an API, or maybe they have like a terminal interface like you said, like AWS etc has.
Mm.
But if that's also open source, then it can actually say, hey, I'm going to use this library, I just need to tweak it
Mm.
to do
Yes.
what you just said for me. So
Yeah.
it really feels like it's, I don't know. I mean, it brings me hope that, AI could be the superpower that really propels like an even more open internet,
Mm.
you know?
Mm.
Um, but I don't know if that's like taking it too far, but, and other me not understanding it like well enough, but that's the way it seems to me. What are
Mm.
your thoughts around like just this and open source?
No, I really think that it's a very very strong and compelling argument for that the like the closed source is almost like it has a finite lifespan now. Of course, there's always going to be software as a service, and there's going to be prepackaged, precompiled code that you buy and download. But I don't know. Like it's going to be less and less compelling over the years. It's in comparison to what you will be able to achieve with AI, to even like have closed code, which, as you say, like you can't ask the AI to tweak it or leverage it for like bits and pieces for your own use. And open source is going to be so much more powerful. But it already is like it's very like if you just look at Microsoft, the classic behemoth in closed source, their one of their big flagships now is VS Code, which is open source. Like they've been forced, or you can say that they've been forced, but they've made the decision to make open source something that they leverage for their business benefits,
Mm.
and I think that's going to be the way forward for all companies and individuals.
And that's sort of interesting because it's yeah, I mean my sense of listening to people like knowledgeable about, I mean, the different technology trends that are going on, right? Is that AI is kind of a catalyst, an accelerant, and something that sort of connects different possibilities and different trends. And it feels like, open source, the API economy, which is basically what you said, like removing, I don't need to use your UX. If you have something valuable, like valuable code that I could utilize in my product or in my business, I can actually access it through API, like pushing things to the edge, as we said. Um, it feels like a lot of these things are going to come together, and I mean more and more, like I've been skeptical about this before, but more and more it feels like, you know AI might be like the ultimate UX,
Mm,
right? And
mm,
I don't think like the current way we interact with AI will be the only one, which is, text and voice, I guess. We talked about this before, right? There will still be need for different UXs to express ourselves in different ways. We're not only, our minds, our voice, our the text we produce. We're actually, like physical, moving things around. There's a bunch of these things that it feels like, um, yeah, I mean that AI is going to be the thing that enables, yeah, that like I don't know if that's the right
mm.
way to put it, but like, do
No,
you get
so
the sense of what I'm talking about? Like the like it
definitely,
sort of
and
enables that
and it
UX.
really that exactly that idea that you're expressing now was formalized sort of by Nielsen Group, which is the biggest authority in user experience.
Mm,
With and so they wrote a really seminal blog post just a couple of weeks ago, or within the past month, where they said that AI is the the only the third new UI paradigm to appear
mm,
in computer technology in over 60 years. So in the entire history of computers, there's only been previously two UI paradigms, and now what they call intent-based UI is the third. So which is represented by AI and LLMs. So what you do as a user, that you express your intent, and the software executes that intent for you, and you don't have to point and click and say do this or do that. You express the intent, and then you sort of negotiate verbally, like yeah, something like that, but a bit more like this. And uh, and that's
it's
so that's the
interesting. And
definitely.
then the first one, I guess, is first level terminal kind of do exact like you write in a very clear logical instruction. You write code basically that has like not an intent but like an instruction. And
Mm.
then the next one was the graphical, I guess, where I don't know how you abstract. How did they explain that one? It's basically like if the first one is instruction and the last one with AI is intent, what would that? I guess those are the three, right? Am I
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, so the three paradigms that they talked about was, the first is batch processing, where
Mm,
you don't the only thing you can do is to instruct the computer to deal with databases. Like, you do this with all of these rows of data. So
mm,
you're always processing batches of data. And the second paradigm is command based, where you actually give, either through the terminal or through a point and click UI, you say like command by command, like do this, not,
mm.
then this, and then this. And then the third paradigm is intent based, where you specify the outcome you want, and you don't have to tell the computer how to achieve that outcome. It that's the computer's job now to figure out how do we do that.
That's really interesting, actually, because if I think of the classic kind of taking paper and bringing it to the computer, right? Say
Hmm.
making something digital. That was sort of like going from individual processing, writing one row, to batch processing,
Mm.
you
Yeah.
know, and then you go from there to command. I mean, a lot of things went
Mm.
straight from paper to command, right? Either in
Mm.
graphical or a terminal-based interface, right?
Yeah.
And now the interesting question is, I guess, for us who are building things,
Mm.
okay, now we're going from command to intent.
Yes.
How does that change things? What becomes possible?
Mm.
That's an interesting question. I'm definitely going to bring with me.
Yeah.
Uh,
And
okay.
just to be clear, like the batch processing paradigm, that was that's how they defined the computers that existed between 1945 and 1965. So
Aha.
it's
Okay. So
like
it's
way
that
back.
early. Okay.
that
It's
it,
that
and
early. Okay.
then in 1964 or 1965 was the first command based computer invented. So, and that's why they say that it has been 60 years since we've come up with a new paradigm of UI, and which
Wow.
is now the intent based UI.
So what comes to your mind there? Do you have you like since you listened to or read it? I don't know
Hmm.
that report.
Hmm.
Like, what did has anything come up? Like any kind of clear example of like, wow, this becomes possible when we go from command to intent in
So
terms
yeah,
of.
yeah, the most mind boggling thing is that like the mind boggling idea for me is that then it means that all the software that is built for the command based UI are going to sooner or later become obsolete. If this, or maybe there are still use cases for it, but it feels so much more intuitive to just state the outcome. Like, give me a, I want a social media campaign running 24/7 in all my social channels. Have that done for me.
Yeah.
I want these kinds of customers to be attracted to this kind of offer. That's the
Mm.
outcome. That's my intention. Figure out how to achieve that. And like, and if you think about how much software is written in order to plan, figure out, and execute all of that, like how much, not only how many jobs will be replaced, but how much software will be replaced.
Yeah, that's also interesting. I mean, either replaced or like demoted down the stack, right?
Yeah,
It's a little,
demoted down
I
the
don't know,
stack.
like
Yeah.
my sense, I think there's a good like formal definition of this and explanation of this, but just to give it in my words,
Mm.
it's a little bit like, when you build infrastructure, then it's like it builds on top of each other. So
Yeah.
first, right, you need to be able to actually, physically send information between computers in different
Mm.
places, right?
Mm.
And then, okay, so let's just forward to the broadband, right? That enabled high-speed internet, right? The fiber. And then, and that's like real stuff that's been built and cables that have been like
Yes.
in the ground and beneath,
Mm.
the ocean and everything, or in the ocean at least. Um, and then on top of that, now we have all these kind of uh, let's call it, different cloud providers, or the compute layer, the storage, etc. And then on top of that, we have a lot of different products like that are, I would say, then in the command paradigm. And
Mm.
one way of viewing it is that if we just move one layer up the stack, they just become things that are like commodity-ish, or like at least further down the stack, that are used by intent-based software. So it's a little bit like, at least one other way it might play out, I have no idea, of course, is that it's not that existing, command-based products die. It's just that they become utilities. They become
Yeah.
like, they don't become user-facing. They are
Mm.
pushed down the stacks, and if they have valuable functions provided, probably through API, or something else, or through their then the intent-based software, the AI, will use it. So
Mm.
it is quite mind-boggling, actually. The just if you look at the technology industry,
Yeah.
imagine it being pushed away from the user. Maybe that's captured still by the same incumbents and stuff, right? But like pushed down, and all that's on top is this intent-based,
Yeah.
or this very like a much smaller amount maybe of intent-based UI, let's say.
And then we are commoditizing UI, which has been like the unique selling points for so many apps that have become incumbents. That,
Mm,
and we're commoditizing them, and we're just demoting them to become backends.
mm,
And and then they can be much more easily replaced, because
yeah.
the AI doesn't care the brand of the API it's
Mm.
calling, just as long as it performs the function.
Yeah, and
And
that's interesting. Oh, go on.
yeah, and I just want to circle back to our initial question, just so we don't lose any readers out in up in too far up in the sky. That code or sorry, open interpreter that is released now cannot execute anything autonomously. We're not like right now. People are excited about the idea of connecting this to autonomous agents, but it's still um, completely prompt based and reactive. Open Interpreter is super powerful. It can control everything on your laptop and in the cloud, but it's still waiting for your to react to your prompt. And so it's not going to take over the world anytime soon. It's just that it's a big leap forward.
I wonder how many of the people listening to this actually are afraid of the like AI taking over the world thing. I feel that's like a niche thing, like still, but anyhow, uh,
But so
yeah.
you could like there is actually like now if you give if you would pair up Open Interpreter with Llama 2 or Llama Code or something like a local model, and you would give it a complete narrative of this idea of an AI escaping into the
Mm,
web, you actually can, in theory, have it create a program that uploads the entire stack of Open Interpreter and that Llama code to a web server somewhere in the cloud, and then uses Open Interpreter to run the terminal on that server to replicate
Mm.
itself onto another server and onto another server. So like with this technology, you actually you could right now today is like if you put your mind to it and work for a few weeks, you could create an AI that becomes a virus that just leverages free cloud compute, like jumping to the next and to the next. But the hurdle there is that it actually have to execute the um, and the LLM needs to still run on GPUs somewhere, which is pretty expensive. Maybe it could run off of free ChatGPT. Just set up
Yeah.
new ChatGPT accounts and leverage the reasoning capacity of GPT 3.5. But
I hope this was
still,
not the Genesis moment.
no, it's but but then what do you have? You have something that is becoming sort of a parasite on society. It's not going to take over the world. It's going to
Yeah,
consume resources on cloud services everywhere.
yeah. Maybe try to make Bitcoin.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah, maybe. Uh,
Yeah.
but it's not going to be able to do anything that humans haven't already spent decades doing by hand.
No,
So
no,
I'm not worried at all
no,
about
no,
that as a development.
no. Okay, that was a fun last tangent.
Yes.
But I think it was really fun to like dive into this and how this like speaks to the whole stack of things because
Hmm.
just final thought from me is basically on top of the stack we already described, and I think we've touched upon this before, just like the opportunities within the AI space. It's like, yeah, of course, now you have the foundational models running on all these previous infrastructures that have
Mm,
been built. And then on top of that, you have a lot of new kind of AI specific kind of DevOps, not only DevOps, but like dev tooling
mm,
that can utilize those models. And then on top of that, like the thing I'm really curious about is like, what is the UX going to be?
mm,
And it's definitely it is intent based. And I think, the biggest opportunity is going to really be there, and
mm.
that's where I'm excited. Like the AI
Yeah.
UX, really, really am.
Then I'm gonna round off with what I'm super curious about, and
Yeah,
that is
please.
what is Adept.ai doing these days. They took in a big bunch of capital in the spring to build the the language model to basically be able to run the web.
Mm,
So it's like Open Interpreter, but for the browser to use any tool on the web. And they like all their like a few weeks after they took in the money, all of their social media feeds just died, became silent. They're not they are not communicating anymore. They are in such a like either they're in so much trouble that they're not communicating, or they are onto something that is so powerful that they don't have to market themselves anymore. And
yeah,
of course, that's in my mind that the latter is
yeah,
the more probable. And I think that they sooner or later they will need to come out with whatever they're doing, or they're just busy making so much money on something that they don't want to tell anyone else, um, that they will just stay silent.
yeah,
And that's what some of there are huge firms doing robot trading that is just they don't have to market themselves. They just
yeah,
need to hire enough quants, people with computers for brains to run their servers, and then just they don't even take on investors, some of those firms, because they just have enough money. They don't want to share the opportunity with anyone else.
yeah.
Maybe that
Interesting
was,
stuff.
yeah. Awesome. Let's talk more about this in upcoming episodes. This has been fun.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Martin. See
Thanks,
you later.
Rasmus. See you.